Yo, what's up guys? Today I'm going to share with you how I improve at chess. So, as we all know, a chess game consists of the opening, the middle game and the end game. So that's why this video will also be split on these three parts. And one more thing, doesn't matter which rating you are right now, this video is meant for everyone. Now let's get straight into it. Let's start with the openings. You probably heard of the opening theory. Now, what is the opening theory? Well, those are positions that have been reached before and analyzed by humans or engines. And they have determined the best move or several moves that are playable in that position. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say you play the black pieces and white goes e4, you go e5, and then they go knight f3. So in this position, you have to defend the pawn. I mean, you have other options, but let's say you see this for the first time and you want to defend the pawn. Now, you can defend the pawn with knight c6, d6, f6, like bishop, d6, a lot of options basically. And now you want to figure out which one is the best. It's gonna be hard to do that over the board or while you're playing the game. So that's why we use opening theory. So you see this position, you know, I can play knight c6 or I can play d6. Those are the only playable moves or the best moves. And so it saves a lot of time because you can just blitz out the moves if you know a lot of theory. And it doesn't make you lose in the opening, hopefully, if you remember the theory correctly, because the main goal of the opening is to get an advantage. So if your opponent doesn't play the most optimal moves, you can maybe get an advantage, so you're set up for the middle game. Against e4, for below 1000 rating, I recommend that you learn the e5. So you do not play the Caro-Kann, the Sicilian, the, I don't know what else, the Alekhine. You just play principled, you're gonna learn e5. Now, how do you actually learn an opening? Well, for that, we're gonna switch to Lichess. Why did I switch to Lichess? Well, because Lichess has one feature that chess.com doesn't, and that is the player database. Chess.com does have the masters database, so the master over the board games, but it doesn't have the player database. And as you can see in this player database on Lichess, we have 4.5 billion games. And we need that because we want to get the most popular responses in the opening from the opponents online and not just the masters, because we're not gonna be playing against 2500 GMs. So let's say you're 800 on chess.com. Well, that means that you're so 600, so you're 1250 on Lichess. So now let's go to, you go on the settings button and you're gonna select the rating for the games. So you're gonna check off all above, let's say 1400, because if you're 1250, let's say, okay, you keep 1400, so you want to have a little bit of space, so you want a bit higher opponents also in the sample. And now you click all set. And here we have the database, so 2 billion games of players rated 1400 on Lichess and below. So that's about, I don't know, like 900 on chess.com. So let's say we're gonna learn e4, and as you can see, the most popular response by far is e5. Okay, so e5, and now knight f3. Most popular again, knight c6, and for white, bishop c4. Okay, so most players play the Italian game. I also recommend you learn the Italian game with white. So let's say, okay, bishop c4. And now here is when you're gonna start using the engine. The two most popular responses are knight f6 or bishop c5. And those two are actually the best moves, because in this database there aren't necessarily the best moves. Those are just the most popular moves that opponents play. So that's why for the white side from now on we're gonna be using the engine. So let's say knight f6, and now we enable the engine. Okay, so the engine says we can play knight g5 or d3. Now here I just want to add something. If you want to be really precise, so that's for the higher rated players, you might want to use the chess.com engine, but only if you have the membership. So now here on chess.com, if you have the, I think you have to have the diamond membership. I'm not sure, but basically if you have the cloud analysis option, if you click on that, as you can see, this is gonna analyze much faster than on Lichess. So it goes deeper, but that's just for the precise moves if you have some complicated position. In this position, obviously, there is also a lot of theory that's well known, so you don't have to analyze this position. But that's just if you get into some deep lines, and then if you want to analyze quicker, on chess.com, the depth is gonna be much faster, so the engine will be faster. So now if we go back to Lichess, as you can see, it picks up the depth slower. But that doesn't matter, that's just for the, if you want the most precise analysis in some complicated positions. Now in this position, as you can see, the engine says we can play d3, d4, okay, I wasn't aware of that move, and knight g5. I play knight g5, I think it's the most challenging. This is the fried liver attack. And now for the black, you don't look at engine moves, you look at the most popular moves. And now, as we can see, the most popular move is d5. So opponents are most likely gonna go d5. Now you turn on the engine for the white side. Okay, the best move is pawn takes, you can see +2. So if it's plus, that means that white is better. If it's minus in front, that means that black is better. So -2 means black is better for 2 pawns. So basically like black would have 2 pawns if I played bishop b5. Okay, so we saw that this move is the best, so we take. Now the most popular move is knight takes d5. We go knight takes d5, we look at the engine. Okay, knight takes f7. So as you can see, the engine says this move is the best, which is true, because this is already a slight mistake. So now let's go down this line. So you're gonna take here, they're probably gonna recapture. Obviously this is the most logical move. And now, as you can see, engine, you go queen f3 check. Now the most popular move is king e8. We're gonna look at all of the options, because here, as you can see, it's not popular by much, so it's only 5% more popular than the best move, which is king e6. But let's look at king e8 first. So they're most likely gonna go king e8, and now you again turn on the engine, bishop takes knight, you go with this line. And now, okay, they go knight d4, and now if we look at the engine, it says #1. That means checkmate in one move. So if you follow the most popular line in the fried liver, you're gonna most likely get a checkmate in 9 moves. Now let's go back. Let's say, okay, here knight d4 is, let's say, by far the popular, but let's say you also want to learn some other moves. Let's say, what if they play queen e7? Now you go queen e7, you look at the engine, bishop takes knight is the best move, you play that. You look at the database, b takes most popular, you look at the engine, queen takes most popular, look at the database, bishop d7 most popular, engine, rook takes, queen takes rook. And let's say this is the depth you're gonna go to, because here you're obviously winning. You're checking the king and you're just gonna castle and you're gonna have a comfortable position. So let's say, okay, so we analyzed queen e7 and we analyzed knight d4. Let's look at queen e6, queen f6 as well. Okay, in this position, still we take the knight. BC is the most popular move. And now engine says, let's wait for it to analyze a bit. So it says queen h5. Okay, we go check. Most popular move g6. And now the engine says queen e2. So you go back, and then you're most likely gonna castle and just get the development in. So as you can see, the engine says we're +3, material is equal in this position, but you can clear, I mean, I guess we're up a pawn, didn't even notice. So we're up a pawn in this position, and the most important thing, look at the pawns. They are double, they are split, isolated, their structure is terrible. So now we looked at 3 moves in this variation. We looked at 3 moves here. Now let's go back. Let's go back to this position. Let's look at king e6 as well. Now the best move, obviously you look at the engine, knight c3, the knight is pinned. Let's look at the most popular response, knight b4. Okay, best move. Let's wait for a bit. If it jumps between moves, you can wait a bit, so it analyzes. Let's say castling. You played castling. The most popular move is c6, and so on and so on. And then you go back, let's say again to this position, or even let's say in this position, you also look at the second most popular move, which is knight d4, and then you're gonna see that you're gonna look at the engine. Bishop takes is the best, and that's how you build a course, an opening course for yourself. So you just look at, let's say, the 3 most popular responses if they are kind of similar. If it's like 80% one move, then most likely they're gonna play that move, so you just look at that one. So this is how you build an opening course for yourself. This is what I'm currently doing. I'm going much deeper and much more, like many more options, but this is basically what I'm doing right now. Once you are done with your opening analysis, you're gonna go down here and copy the PGN. So you go copy, and then you go to Learn, Study, My Studies. You're gonna create a new one, and then you can name it whatever you want. I'm just gonna spam some random letters. And now you go Visibility, Invite Only, because you don't want for the whole public to see your study. So you go Invite Only, and then you click on Start, and then you can also name the chapters, but the most important thing is that you want to paste your PGN in this box. And then orientation, so we are in this opening, the Italian opening, we're obviously playing as white, so you select white, and then create chapters. And here you have all the notation that you've analyzed. And then you can add new chapters for new openings, and that's how you learn your openings. So in my opinion, this is the best thing to do if you want to learn a new opening. Now, do you have to memorize all of the lines? No, because another thing that you have to understand in the opening is the opening ideas. So when you do this analysis, you're also gonna pick up on some opening ideas. So I'm gonna show you a position in the accelerated Dragon Sicilian. So I'm just gonna make up the moves. So this is the position that you might get in the accelerated Dragon Maroczy bind Gurgenized variation. Yeah, this opening. So let's say we're playing black here, white goes, I don't know, b3. Now as you can see, the masters here mainly play b5. Now b5 just looks like a blunder. b5 takes. We just lost a pawn. What? Okay, let's say you're gonna take this one here, but let's say bishop takes. So we just lost the pawn. Like, what's going on? So there is no way you would come up with this idea just when you're playing the game. So that's why analyzing the openings and studying the openings is gonna help. Now, obviously, you do not have to make these opening courses for every single opening, every single reply, unless you're like 2000 and above. Because I actually started doing this right now because I want to reach 2100 in rapid on chess.com, so I'm actually studying a lot of theory. But for most players, you do not have to do that. This is just if you want to get, let's say, really good at Italian and you're always struggling, you can make yourself a course. So this is just an idea. Now, for below 8000, we're always going to be talking about chess.com rating. Below 1000 on chess.com, I recommend you go either with the Italian or let's say the Scotch. So you play these simple openings, Scotch or Italian. And if you're black, you're gonna go with, so if you play with black pieces, you're gonna go with, if they play e4, you're gonna go e5. If they go d4, you're gonna go d5. If they go c4, you're gonna go c5. So you just learn these simple responses, and obviously you're gonna have to look at some more moves, not just, okay, d4, d5, that's all the theory I need. Another useful thing to do is to look at master games. So let's say d4, d5. Obviously first you look at Lichess database, you see the most popular move is c4. Then you turn on the engine. The best thing to do against this is the Queen's Gambit. The best thing to do is to decline this gambit. And then you look at master games, just so you see where they place the pieces. So this is the Lichess database, and then you switch to Masters database. And you just click on a random game. Let's look at Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. And now we're gonna look for the black side where black places their pieces. So as you can see, this knight is going to f6, bishop goes to e7. And then if we look at some more moves, okay, so finally the knight goes to d7. So as you can see in d4, d5 positions, so d4, d5 positions, usually the knight goes on d7. So this is something you're gonna learn from watching some master games. And also just search up on YouTube the opening that you want to learn, and there will definitely be a couple of videos about the opening. Now let's move on to the middle game. In the middle game, you're gonna apply the opening ideas that you hopefully know from the opening. If you don't, then in general, you just want to place the pieces on the most active squares as possible. So let's look at the example. Let's look at this position. In this position, this is from the Italian opening. Usually this knight, so the rook moves away and then this knight goes to the other side. Now, if you do not know this, then just place the knight on the most active square. So let's say you're gonna go knight d2 and then knight c4. So you just want to have the knight in the center where it's the most active. So you do not want to, let's say, place the knight on a3 and just leave it there. So just place the pieces on the most active squares. And when you do that, there will be tactics. Now, how do you get better at tactics? Well, you solve puzzles. Now, let's go over to puzzles. So for puzzles, I recommend you solve a bit lower rated puzzles. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're 1200 at rapid. That means that your puzzle rating will be somewhere around, let's say, 2000 or 1900. Now, if you think about it, if you play a game, are you really gonna be able to spot the 2000 rated puzzles? The 2000 rated tactics, actually? Well, probably not. So that's why I want you to solve low rated, so let's say 1600 rated puzzles or 1700 rated puzzles, but I want you to spot all of them, almost all of them. Obviously, you're never gonna spot 100% of them, but let's say 90%. You want to see the 90% of 1700 rated puzzles as a 1200 rated rapid player. So if you have a chess.com membership, you're gonna input the rating range as, let's say, 1600 to 1700. So let's say about 500 points or 400 points above your rapid rating. Now, what if you do not have the membership on chess.com? Well, then you're gonna have to use Lichess. On Lichess, you do not have this feature to actually solve puzzles based on the rating, so you can actually input the rating range. But what you can do is you can select the difficulty level of your puzzles. So you can select easier, -300 rating. So that means in my case, I'm 2200 currently. So this puzzle should be around 1900 rating. Also keep in mind that the puzzle rating on Lichess is gonna be much lower than the puzzle rating on chess.com. So for middle games, applying the opening ideas and placing your pieces on the best squares possible, you're gonna solve puzzles. So I recommend about 10 per day, and you want to get most of them correct. You can also play Puzzle Rush, and even if you do not have the membership, you get one Puzzle Rush per day for free. You can also play a free version of Puzzle Rush on Lichess. It's called Puzzle Streak. And then the third thing for the middle games is playing games. You're just gonna play games and analyze them. That's how you're gonna learn the most. Now let's move on to the final stage, the end game. Now, a lot of players are scared of playing end games, and I don't think that should really be the case. So let's look at how to improve at them. Now, obviously, the most important thing is playing games and actually analyzing them. That's how you get better, by the way, not just playing games. And then also there are theoretically winning endgames and also theoretically drawn endgames. And you want to learn them. Now, if we go over to learn and then endgames, and then here you have the checkmates, the pawn endgames, minor pieces, rooks, queens. Let's look at pawns. Now again, I don't know if this is the pre-main feature, but you also have the free version on Lichess. So here on Lichess, you're gonna go to learn, practice, and then scroll all the way to the bottom, and you have rook endgames and pawn endgames. I recommend for the players below 1000 rating that you learn the basic checkmates, so 2 rooks, queen, and the single rook. And then the pawn promotion, so just one pawn and a king against a king. I'm actually gonna show you how to do that later. Now, for the players, let's say below 1500, you also want to know some rook endgames like Lucina position. You can learn that on YouTube. I'm also gonna probably make a video on that in the future. And then some queen endgames, how to stop a pawn. Let's say this position, how do you stop the black pawn? So endgames like that, where you have to learn a specific pattern or you have to learn some rules. Those endgames you should be familiar with when you're, let's say, 1500. Now let's go over some pawn endgames. I'm gonna do the winning king and pawn endgame. By the way, I did also make a video in my chess improvement series about how to promote pawns, but I will also make a video about these specific positions when you only have one pawn. But for today, we're just gonna look at these 5 positions and how I usually practice them. Let's start with the first one. So here we want the black king to move. And when it moves to the left, we're gonna go to the right. And when he goes to the right, we're gonna go to the left. So that's why we move the pawn. So we make him move. And now he goes to the left, so we go to the right. And now, as you can see, all of these squares are protected. And we go up. We don't go to f6, because if you go to f6, so in this position, if we go to f6, he can go back to e8. So we also want to control the e8 square. And now we can just promote the pawn. And when I get the queen, I want to checkmate as fast as possible. So I want to basically pre-move everything. This is also a practice for the bullet games. So I'm just gonna try to checkmate him as fast as possible. Go here and mate. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here it looks like it's a draw, but it's not, because we can just sidestep and just push. Okay, he went to the side. If he went here, we would just push. But now it's just easy. We just promote, and again, I'm gonna attempt to checkmate as fast as possible. Now I can just pre-move and mate. Okay, this one, we always go in front of the pawn. We go up. Okay, he gets the opposition, but we can get it back by pushing the pawn for 1 square. He went to the left, so we go to the right, and we always obviously go up because we want to make progress, not just dance back and forth. Okay, here we go to c5, so we get the opposition again. Again, he went to the left, so we go to the right, and now we go back. Now we push the pawn for 2 squares. Okay, he goes out. Now we can just promote. Again, I'm gonna attempt to checkmate as fast as possible. I messed up. This is a great practice for bullet time scrambles or just time scrambles in general. Okay, this one, I guess we go here, we go in front of the pawn, push, we can go up, can again go up, and we step in front. He went to the right, we go to the left, we promote. Again, let's do the practice for bullet. We go here and down and mate. No, messed up. Here. And there we go. And the last one. Okay, here we have to, you always want to get the king in front of the pawn. So we go down, we get in front, I can push, and go up, go back, go to the left, go back, push the pawn for 2 squares. I don't know why the engine always goes away, but because humans usually go back to c8, but then they have to move, and again you do the same thing. If they go to the left, you go to the right. If they go to the right, you go to the left. But engines go away, and now I can again promote. And let me just do the checkmate. Here, cannot pre-move that, and there we go. So this is how I practice my endgames. Let's look at one last thing. If you go to learn and then practice, drills, and then you have endgame fundamentals and endgame practice. So you've got a lot of positions that you can practice in order to improve your endgame skills. That's all the advice I have. Now it's up to you if you want to actually improve your chess. Thanks for watching and see you next time.